When you are running an outboard jet on a boat, you have to maintain what's inside the jet. That means if I look at my motor here, you have to look to maintain what inside here. So what is it inside the jet unit? We have the impeller and we have the liner. So what I'm gonna need to maintain that, so mainly I'm gonna have to do some work on the impeller. That's obvious, this one is not really in good condition. For that I'm gonna use a file and or an angle grinder. You can do everything with a file if you just have to touch it a little bit on the impeller, but when it's like this with the big chunk like this, it's much easier to do it with the angle grinder. And for the liner I'm gonna use some sandpaper. So I will start with the impeller. Here you see it's really damaged. We have here a really big edge. We have a burr on the back, that point here. So what I'm going to do with the angle grinder, I'm going to flatten these three sides over there with the angle grinder. So with the flap disc, okay, so the first steps is to flatten that part here. Now it's flat. Now what I'm going to do, I flip it and I will take the burr out of the back with the file. But just to take the burr out, no sharpening, no nothing, just this burr. Okay, that on every one, you have to take that out with the file well flattened. Just a small touch on the back to take the burr out. Now, so this is straight, we have no burr on the back. I'm going to make that angle with the flap disc. Of course, if you don't have to touch it too much, you can do it with a file, but in that case, if you look at the size I have here, it's really big. And we have to go here. So we have to angle that blade like this, and on front we need 1/32. Now I have my angle here. I have here about 1/30 seconds, or 0.031 or 0.8 millimeter. What I'm gonna do, I am going to smooth that angle and go a little bit rounding it to make it a little bit bigger and smoother. That's it. It's if you see on the side, it's much smoother, larger and rounder on every one of these. We have to check there's still no burr on the back side. It's okay. And then we have to check all around here if we have no piece of aluminum stuck a little bit and protruding. It's okay. The last one, it's okay. So if you have a small piece of aluminum sticking on the side like this, you have to remove it with the file. That's it for the impeller. Now for the liner. So that one is slightly damaged. We see that it was touching a little bit here, not touching here. So most of the time the guys, they push it a little bit too far. They try to minimize the gap that we need, and it's touching. As soon as you have a little bit of sand, that will touch and it can seize the impeller in the liner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to smooth every part of the liner with a piece of sandpaper. Like for example here I have, I don't know if we can see it in the camera, but I have a small piece of aluminum sticking out. So all that, just like this, and do that all around the liner. Now I worked everything is smooth. I don't have any piece of aluminum sticking out, protruding, and so it's especially when it was a little bit damaged like this liner, it will not be possible to catch all the grooves. But the goal is to have something smooth and something kind of flat. Even if there's still some marks like this, it's not really a big problem. You will lose a little bit of power, of course, but it's not so much. And but like I said, the important is to have it really smooth and nothing that can catch the impeller. Now we have to put it back on the jet unit. So what do I have to put my impeller liner on the shaft here. I have normally 7 shims like this. I have one small cup with a rubber washer. I have a lock washer with these 2 little ears, and I have the nut that goes on the shaft. That goes inside the impeller. I have the plastic sleeve, and I have a keyway. Depending on the motor, you have a half round keyway like this or a square one. On this one, it's a half round. First, I take my impeller. I have my small groove here. I take my liner. I put that inside, aligning the opening with the notch, and the keyway will go here. Of course, sometimes it does not stay, sometimes it stays. That one stay, miracle. So I'm going to stack everything on my fingers, my shaft nut, my lock washer, my cup with the plastic rubber, and the shims here. As my impeller, it's not a new one, my liner, it's not a new one either, I'm gonna have to put some shims on the top. If it's a new liner, a new impeller, normally you will have no shim on top, or maybe one. In that case, I will start with putting 2 shims on the top. I slide it on the shaft. The other one stay here. On my impeller, I just keep the keyway with my finger. I align it with the flat on the shaft. And up. Okay. That's in. Push the keyway. You can help it push it a little bit with the nut, especially when you are in the on the river direct. And then the spare shims, I'm gonna put them here. I put now the torsional damper, so the little cup and the rubber washer with the rubber on top. I then put the lock washer, and then I put the shaft nut. Okay, here what I do, I will tighten it a bit to be sure it's not moving, just in case it's not pushed all the way. And then I take my liner and I will check the clearance. Before to check the clearance, you have to be sure here on the lip it's absolutely clear of debris, and here also, because if you have some sand or some piece of rock, you will have a false reading. Then you put it like this all the way, and you read the gap between the impeller and the liner. So the gap between the impeller and the liner, it's also the same than the thickness of the angle or the lip on the impeller. It's gonna be 1/32. So I have here a filling gauge. It's a 0.032 or 0.8 millimeter, and you have to check if the gauge goes everywhere, not only on the edge or on the tip here, but everywhere. Especially when you have a damaged impeller, damaged liner like this that you rebuild, you can have just the tip a little bit recessed and the rest a little bit sticking out. So always with the gauge, You can take a piece of plastic, for example. Normally the guides in their toolbox, they have a piece of cap coming from peanut butter, and it's about 0.032. So you have to check the gauge everywhere, and if it's okay, we can close it. If the gap is too big, you will lose some power. If the gap is too small, you have the possibility to, when it sucks some sand, to stuck the impeller in the liner. So at least 1/32 everywhere. You have to look a little bit with the liner because they can move just a bit, and you have to move it and see in the position it's the closest if the gap is okay. So if the gap is too big, I take everything out and take one of the shims that I have here, and I will put it on top. Like this, it pushes the impeller down. It's the gap. If the gap is not enough, I take everything out and I take one shims from the top that I put on the bottom. The important adjustment is made with the shims that you have on top. The shims that you have on the bottom, it just spare. Like this, if you have to adjust it on the river, even if you lose one shim, it's not a problem if you have one lost shim on the bottom, because the important ones are on the top. It's the top that makes the gap. Here, my gap is okay. My filler gauge goes everywhere without a problem, so I can put it like this. In my case, I do that very often, so I don't need the filler gauge. I use my thumbnail. It's about the same. If my thumbnail goes everywhere, the gap is okay. Now that I know that my gap is okay, I will be sure to tighten it good. Yeah, it's okay. And what I do, I fold the ears on the lock washer. Okay, now liner, back. Okay, I try to center it a little bit. I take my water intake, put it in place, and then my nuts. There's 6 nuts. I put 2 opposite, and like this I can have my 2 ends free. So it's especially important when you are on the river, when you have to do that on the river. It's much easier if you put 2 on the opposite, and like this you can work absolutely freely. In that case, it's a large model. It's a Y for a Yamaha. So my bolts are 1/2 inch. Then just tighten. That's it. You don't have to over torque them. It's nylox, so normally when they are in place they will not get off. So just have to do that on the 6 nut, and that's it. So that's it. It's kind of easy. It's not rocket science. You don't need really special tools for that, especially if you do it when you don't really absolutely need to do it. You just can sharpen the impeller with a file and not with the angle grinder. Except that it's absolutely normal tools. The most common mistake is to try to put less gap than what you need, and thinking that maybe you will gain more power, and in fact that's absolutely not true. Of course, if you put a really too big gap, you will lose some power, but if the gap is not enough, as soon as you're gonna have some sand into it, you will seize the impeller inside the liner, and so you have to take everything out to fix that. So that doesn't take a lot to do, and it's really important to keep that in good condition to enjoy your boat ride. That's it.